Let me start with the name of Allah, the most compassionate and most merciful. Dear students, I am conveying my best wishes and greeting to every one of you. Hope that everyone is fine and healthy along with your daily life's activity. As we talked in the previous lecture about the industrial psychology, the objectives, aims or purpose of industrial psychology in lecture 30. Today we are talking about the scope of industrial psychology, that what is the scope of this subject, why we should know better about these subjects, or what is the working area of these subjects, where we can utilize the knowledge of industrial psychology in our day-to-day life activity or in a working environment. I mean that the theory portions could be converted in the practical shape. So the practical shape that we are going to utilize in our day-to-day life and organizational sectors in companies or business organizations, wherever we are talking about the subject of a psychology. So what could be the scope of that? So today we are going to discuss about its scopes of these subjects. Scope of industrial psychology یا امو ساحه کاری روانشناسی صنعتی که در کدام بخش زندگی ما از این استفاده میکنیم، چه سکوپ دارد، در مورد سکوپشن گپ میزنیم. So the scope of industrial psychology, we are going to put them into three divisions. I mean that we are dividing the scope into three portions. The first portion of its scope is just talking about the personal psychology. The second portion of these subjects, that is organizational psychology. And the third portion is human engineering. So these three are basically we have divided into three scopes: personal psychology, organizational psychology, human engineering. بخش ساحه کاری روانشناسی صنعتی ما این را در سه بخش تقسیم میکنیم که یک روانشناسی خودی فردی به فرد به شخص که با اشخاص راجع می شود، مربوط به اشخاص می شود. دوم که هستند بخشش ساحه کاری ساحهشان که هستند در بخش ارگانیزیشنز، اداره است، مؤسسات است. و سوم که هستند در بخش ساختمان ساختار انسانی، یعنی که انسان در یک اداره از کدام لوازم، از کدام نوع ساختار استفاده میکند. و این سه بخش ما استفاده میکنیم در سکوپش. هر کدامش ما اینجا سرشون بحث میکنیم. So personal psychology, it is only concerning with the analyzing of the jobs. Now what does it mean that personal psychology, its scope is that it is talking about just to analyze the jobs. What does it mean? It means that whenever we are going to announce some posts, some vacant positions, so definitely many of the people will apply, many of the applicants will apply for such posts. Now we have to use our psychological knowledge for the recruitment of such applicants, that a sound and healthy mind and sound body person should be recruited in the organizations. For that reason, the industrial psychologist will use all its psychological principles, psychological ideas and concepts, the theory that has been gained in the theory portions, just to give a practical shape while recruiting the new employee to the organizations. For that reason, he should have, our psychologist should have a bit the knowledge of psychology just in the process of recruitment of a person. So in personal psychology, such it's concerning with the analysis of the job. So first it is we are talking about recruiting the applicants. It means suitable person should be recruited to the organizations. یک شخص مناسب باید در اداره استخدام شود. شخص مناسب که از لحاظ روانی و از لحاظ صحی هیچ نوع مشکلات را نداشته باشد. خب این کاری که ما انجام میدیم شخصی که مربوط به علم روانشناسی یعنی داشته باشد، به خاطری که وقتی که ما یک شخص را به اداره من حیث یک کارمند استخدام میکنیم، یک روانشناس صنعتی که معمولا در بخش اقتصاد و بخش بزنس و تجارت و صنعت هم تئوری داشته باشد، یا باید از نمی علم روانشناسی که خود استفاده یک شخص مناسب به وظیفه که کاندید باشد او را انتخاب بکند. So selecting of employees, so many employees would be there, they might have applied for the job. So better is that how to select the best employee among many who have applied for the job. So selecting of such employee would be based on the personal knowledge of a person's personal knowledge regarding the psychology, just how to detect such a great person among the persons. Training of employees. So the newly selected employee in the organizations who have been recruited, since they are new in the organization, so they would not be capable to perform all the tasks smoothly in a very better way without giving of a training. So for such employee, the industrial psychologists will provide some of the training sessions for the newly elected or newly selected employee in the organizations, just to build up their capacity. The third point in personal psychology, as it's concerning with analyzing of the job, is to evaluate the employee performance and determining the salary level of such employee who have been newly selected organizations. So it means that the first scope of industrial psychology is a personal psychology. Now what things should be done in personal psychology? These points should be noted while we are practically giving practical shape to the work of industrial psychologists in the organizations. For all these purposes, when we are recruiting, when we are selecting, when we are training, when we are evaluating, or when we are determining the salary level, so based on these points, these concerning points that should be kept in mind while we are recruiting or giving someone or accepting someone as an employee in the organization. So we use for the personal purpose of industrial psychology. Secondly, that is organizational psychology. It means that the peoples have been who have been newly appointed as or assigned some tasks to them, so they are new to the organizations. Now the industrial psychologists are working with all these employees from very close area within the organizations to help them concerning about their issues and their problems, as well as how to motivate them in the organization. So industrial psychology is working from very close area with all the employees in the organizations to understand their psychology and just to work them, just to figure out all the problem that the employees are facing in the organization. So definitely the industrial psychologists are trying their best just to help their employee in the organizations to produce a better productivity in the organizations. So organizational psychology is concerned with the analysis of organizational issue. I mean that industrial psychologist is having the knowledge of organizations in organizational psychology, then the knowledge that they are having in the organizations, that knowledge could be better used for the employee satisfaction, employee motivation, job satisfactions. That could be used for a conflict management, that could be used for better organizational communications. So industrial psychology is looking to this point, that organizational psychology is concerned with the analysis of organization issue. هر مسئله که مشکلی که در یک اداره ایجاد می شود یا به خاطر بهبود ارتباطات بیشتر میان کارمندا، هماهنگی میان کارمندا، به خاطر تشویق، به خاطر تیم ورک و گروپ ورک، به خاطر حل منازعات یا مدیریت منازعات، وقتی که یک مشکل ایجاد می شود در یک اداره، یک مسئله پیدا می شود، یا ما بخوایم که رهبری بهتر بکنیم یا ما بخوایم که کارمندی خود را تشویق بکنیم، انگیزه بدیم که کار انجام بده، بالاخره ما هدف اداره را به دست بیاریم. در اینجا اندستریال سایکولوژیست در امو بخشی در جایی که اداره موجود هستند گماشته می شود و از نزدیک امرای این کارمندا کار میکند تا که مشکلات اینها رفع شود. So organizational psychology is one of the important portions for the business management. So organizational psychologists or industrial psychologists are working, they are employed in the organizations to work with the employees, that how to motivate them, what tips should be used for the motivation of employee. So the industrial psychologists will provide some policies, some strategy that to be applied in the organization for employee motivations, as well as job satisfactions, how the employee could be satisfied from their job in the organizations, that they are mentally fit, they are psychologically fit, they don't have any problems. So in such cases the productivity level will increase and the organization will get a profit from the work of employees, and finally they will achieve their targets. So group process, everyone who works in the organization with each other as a team. So the industrial psychologist will give this conception to the employee in the organizations to work in a team, to work in a group, to bring unity among themselves, that finally the organization will achieve their targets very easily. In leaderships, so how to lead these employees in the organizations, a leadership skill should be applied there, which could better help the organization, because leadership issue also arises in some of the organization where the employee become demotivated and they would not be able to do their well and best in the working environment. Finally the organization may fail because of a wrong or a bad or hardship leadership, as well as for the purpose of the conflict management. Wherever there is human, there might be conflict. So now for the solution of or management of a conflict, the industrial psychologists are employed in the different sectors. They are working with the employees. So any conflict arise between two employees or two candidates that could be better resolved with the help of this industrial psychologists who have been assigned in the organizations, as well as they better will teach their employee within the organization that how to communicate, and in which time you have to do this work, which time you have not to do this work, and this time what you say, and this time what you should not say. So how to communicate among each other with different departments and organizations. So all these points should be properly managed by the industrial psychologist. So this is the second scope of industrial psychology. Now, how many problems would be resolved by assigning a task to industrial psychologist to work there from very close area with the employees in the organizations? Well, the third point, that is human engineering. Now, peoples or applicants or employees are being employed, or they are being given a task. So they are facing with lots of technological issues. There is a lot of machinery. Now it's the age of technology. If you could not utilize the technology in a working environment, for sure, so employee would be facing with a problem. Now, human engineering, they are designing the environment for all the employees who have been newly employed in organizations. They are designing the structuring the working environment for the employee, that they become better motivated in work. So human engineering, it's concerned with the adjustment of man with machines. कि फर्द अमराय machinery चतुर खुदा आयार बसाज़त. این بخش دیگری ایندستریال سایکولوژی سکوپشان هستند که کار و وظیفهشان می هستند که باز آنها بر انسانهایی که در اداره با وظیفه خود گماشته شده است از چطور بیشتر از به شکل درستتر و خود عیار بسازه که از تکنولوژی استفاده بکند. So in such scope of the industrial psychology where there is human engineering is taking place just for the reason just to adjust or to make them proper or fit suitable for such working environment. So here the industrial psychologists will give more information about the layout of the workplace, how to make the workplace, in which position each should work or what should be the direction of that place, whether there is a proper ventilation, there is no ventilation, there is proper lighting system, no proper lighting system. So it will talk about the work layout. So where the employees are working, whether they receive a good oxygens, how is the breathing or ventilation area. So for that, this industrial psychologist will give and help the organizations just how to design a better place for the employee who are working, that they would not face any problem. So man-machine adjustment, they make the man, so giving them training, giving them knowledge, giving them skills that how to use the machines. The man should use machines in a working environment and how to make them adjust with their working environment. So that is another scope of industrial psychology. At the same time, how since employee might be working in the organization, they are feeling bored, they are feeling tired, they are feeling laziness, they might feel arthralgia, they might feel fatigues. Now how to remove these fatigues and boredom in the working environment? The industrial psychologist will be working with the employee, just the employee not feel during their course of work they will not complain about that they are tired, they are bored, they are fatigues and they cannot go ahead with the works. So the industrial psychologists for sure they are working, just the people who have been employed in organization do not think that the humans are being only used in the organization as a disposable product, but the industrial psychologists will give a perception, they will give feelings to the employee in the organizations that they would never feel fatigues and bored in the organization. So such a scope of industrial psychologists is there just to work with these people from very close area. As well as industrial safety is another major issue. All the employees feel secure and safe where they are working. Proper equipment should be given, tools should be given, working tools and utensils should be given for all the employees, that they feel better and they feel secure and safe where they are working. So to make sure the industrial safety, the industrial psychologists are working with all the employees and make every individual sure that their life and property is secured inside the organizations. As well as stress management. So many of the employees might be facing with a lot of problems in the organizations. So when they face with a lot of problems, so since life is full of stress, how to manage the stress. So industrial psychologists are employed in different organizations. So just to relieve the stress of the employee, to remove them, and stress do not become an obstacle for their productivity, and stress do not become a real issue for them. So industrial psychologists are being implied in these three portions. So that is why the scope of psychology we are dividing for personal psychology, organizational psychology, human engineering. So we all do these for a reason, that how to minimize the problem in a working place by using of the psychological principles that industrial psychologists would be using in their working environment to finally to maintain a very good relationships, to maintain a very good peaceful environment where individual can work better, coordinate with each others, and finally the achievement of targets of organization would be easy for that. In many of developed countries, in every organization where there are business activity, and industrial psychologists are being given a task and they are being assigned there, they have been given a position there and they are employed there, so they work with all the other employee organizations just for so many reasons they have been employed there, the industrial psychologists in the organizations. just to remove the conflict which is arising in the organizations, remove the stress of the employee in the organizations, give motivations, and being as a good leader, motivate the employee, and finally they will achieve their targets. So scope of industrial psychology, as we previously discussed about it as well, now little bit more elaborated. We used the knowledge of industrial psychology for staff selection, personal selection. So selection of employees, developing instrument of personal selections. Now the scope of this subject is that they are going to develop some new instrument that or methods that could better help us in selecting of the employee for the jobs. Personal developments. Once the peoples are being employed in organizations, now another stage that will start is the development of a person who is newly recruited in the organization. So developing means of appraisal or performance for all, measurement of attitudes, employee counseling for better adjustment with environment. Now personal management is that personal management or personal development is that how to develop these humans who have been employed in the organization newly, that how to counsel them that they do not hesitate, they do not feel stress, and make them a good environment for them, and that these personals make an adjustment with such environment. So industrial psychologists is powering in facilitating this point to the employees in the organization. The third part is again we are talking about, that is human engineering, suggesting changes, innovation, machine technology, operation, equipment for greater ease in operation and least possible human energy. So the scope of industrial psychology is working there in the field of human engineering, where they could help that how the technological changes could bring a positive changes in human life, and how does it affect the negativity of a employee in the organizations. So to teach them to bring innovations in the utilization of a technology where the employee could not feel boredom and fatigues. So the best possible way that the humans could use their energy in a working environment for the production of productivity of a company. Here the human engineering, in field of human engineering, we get the benefit from the scope of the subject of industrial psychology. At the same time, productivity study, activities of lessening worker fatigues, improving work environmental conditions, light ventilation, work arrangement, and etc. to maximize the efficiency of employee. For the maximization of human efficiency, employee efficiency, organizations, then we have to see that all the things within the organizations are proper, it's running well and smoothly, so definitely the productivity of the employees working would be increased. Next part is management. Now, activity involving development of managerial skills. Industrial psychologists are working in the psychological management, field of psychological management, that how they could better manage the working activity of their employee in the organizations, where stress is a matter, where depression is a matter, where workload is a matter, where financial crisis is a matter, social relation is a matter. So it all makes a conflict in the organization. So once the conflict arises among the employees in the organization, so demotivation will take place. So there will be wrong leaderships. Finally, the organization would not be able to get the targets through the help of this employee. So for that reason, for a better management, as a scope of industrial psychologists, they work to use this industrial psychology, the knowledge of industrial psychology, as a tool of management for managing all the activities of an employee in the organizations. Another point which is very much important in the scope of industrial psychology is just to prevent the accident and safety and make the safety measures. The employee would not face with any of the property damage, they would not face with any health damage, and they make sure themselves that the accident would not take place in the organizations. So the life of individuals is secure theirs, and all the safety measures have been put into account just safety regulation have been properly being applied in organizations and safety measures are taken. So the life, body, psychological and physical health of a person is almost prevented from all sort of accidents, and they are secure. So such thing would be facility would be provided by the industrial psychologist, because it comes in the scope of industrial psychology. As well as the next point is labor relationships. Now the labor relation is very important points. Now how the employee or how the labor makes a good relation with each other, they coordinate with each other, they work as a team in the organizations. So building of such the relation among the laborers. So this is another task of the industrial psychologists as their scope, to work from very close area with all these laborers, that they feel brother with each other, they feel together with each other, they work as a team, and finally the teamwork will bring positivity in the organizations, and the organization will run smooth and they will achieve their targets. So it all happens because of the knowledge, principles, conceptions, idea, the one who is called industrial psychologist, to apply it in the working environment, make sure that everyone is safe, everyone is happy, and organization will finally go to the positivities. This was about the scope of psychology. We will discuss about the importance and application of these subjects in the world of today in our next lectures. Let me remind you once again, if you have faced with any problems regard to the lectures, any points is very complicated for you and complexions are there, so let me remind you once again, I have put there my WhatsApp number. You can leave or drop your message, whether that is text or voice message, for in the WhatsApp. I'm pleased to answer you on the spot or later on. So wish you all the best, have a great time. See you next lecture in the next lectures. Allah Hafiz.